Tonight we have an amazing guest. I'm really excited to have this lady here. Her name is Judy Satori, and she has, I would say, a lifetime's, a kind of a crazy lifetime, I would call it, an incredible life where she's experienced so many different energies, and she actually speaks light language, which is coming true from other civilizations, and she also is a bit of an expert in the whole area of ascension. So we're going to talk about some really interesting subjects tonight and hear about her life and what she's experienced. So I think the best thing to do is we'll just give her a big welcome. Judy Satori, come in the door. You're very welcome, Judy. Great to have you.
It's really great to be here too.
Great to have you.
And wonderful to meet all of you. Thank you.
So before we start, I'm going to do a short meditation. So we'll just get a chance to just chill out. Invite you all to turn off your phones or put them on silent. And I'm just going to ask you to just let go of your day. Is that my phone or? Okay. Okay. Yeah, is the window, can we close the window there actually? Yeah, great. There's a bit of a nightclub on outside already. So I'm just going to invite you all to close your eyes. And just really drop into your heart center. And just feel yourself moving from thinking to feeling. So moving from head to heart. And just put your hand on your heart. And take a couple of deep breaths into your heart center. And now just get a sense of yourself. Use your imagination and just feel yourself in one of your most favorite places. Somewhere in nature or by the sea or somewhere in the beautiful countryside. Just get a sense that you're there. And to really make it tangible, just see your feet, kind of your bare feet, going into the ground and really grounding you in that space, in that place. So actually feel like you're there right now in that natural environment. Just get a sense of how fresh the air is, and it's a beautiful day and the sights are beautiful. You can hear the sounds of nature in the background. Besides that, they are nature as well, those lads. And now, just as we go into the talk now, I'm just going to invite you to stay in this space. So this energy in your heart is much more open. The mind tends to have judgments and thoughts about things, but the heart is just more open. So I'll invite you to stay in that space tonight and take away what resonates and just let go of the rest. So you can let yourself off the hook. No need for your mind tonight. And now bring yourself back into the space. But keep that energy with you of your favorite place. As you open your eyes. And brilliant. So great to have you here, Judy.
It's wonderful to be here, and it feels like I've come home when I've come to Ireland, actually, because it's very like Christchurch in New Zealand, if you've ever been to New Zealand. And also my ancestry was from my mother's side and my grandfather's side, Irish. So it feels really at home. And some of the sayings that my grandfather used to say, you know, have a cup of tea, and I've really been enjoying Irish tea. I have to say it's gorgeous. I'm becoming quite addictive to Irish tea. And he used to have condensed milk in his tea and a Dundee biscuit. And he used to sing, "It's a long, long way to Tipperary," and "Take Me Home, Kathleen," and all the old Irish songs that he would have grown up with. So this is a tribute to my grandfather, who would have been about 120 now. So, yeah. So it's great. Thank you, Paul.
Brilliant, brilliant. Delighted to have you. So we wanted to start with you maybe reading from the book. Do you still feel you want to do that?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So Judy wrote a book called Sunshine Before the Dawn. And tell us a bit about the book, Judy.
Well, I used to live in upstate New York and by a lake in the Finger Lakes. And this is going back to 2010. I started really doing this work with spirit in 1998, so it was quite a way down the track that I was writing this book. And I was sitting on the deck of the house overlooking the lake, and and it was dusk, and I saw a large orb of light stationary above the lake. And as I watched it, I thought, that's not a plane, it's too low and it's too big. And it wasn't really moving. And then as I was watching, I felt a lot of energy come into my throat, and it was like that, and it just about knocked me over. And I heard a voice start to speak to me telepathically, and the voice said that it was a commander of a spaceship, and that this ball of light was like the landing craft, and they were beaming some energy at me. And they said, "We're coming soon to tell you a story, and we want you to write it down and share it." And it's a story about, it's a love story, but also it's a story of remembering and the story of the evolution, the creation of the human being. Now, I knew nothing of this, but in about 5 months later, in January 2011, I was woken up again by this big ball of light above the lake, and a voice spoke to me again in my head, and it said, "It's time to get up, it's time to start writing." So I want to read you the first 2 pages of the story, because I wrote this story without knowing anything about what it was about, except it was a story of love, and it was a story of human evolution. And I heard it dictated to me, and I saw it unfolding in my mind like watching a movie on a screen. And I think it's my story, but I think the story, when people read it, they also resonate with the story, because it feels like the story of all of us, really. It's our story. So I'm just going to read you the first part, because the first words that I wrote on the computer were "the dreamers, 100,000 years ago." And it says, and this is what I got: "Long ago, in a time known by the ancients as Zeptifi, the first times, the Council of Light for our Milky Way galaxy gathered on a far-flung star called Antares. The Council's responsibility was to introduce life to those star systems that could support embodied physical life. The members of the Council of Light aligned with the oneness, the creative force of the heavens, with the energy of God, so that they could create within these energy constructs as God. They were beings of love, highly evolved masters of creation. Although they were embodied in physical form, they emanated and radiated light. To be in their presence was to feel love. The Galactic Council of Light met together on the star Antares in a vast crystal cavern. The walls shone like shot silk with a light that shimmered vivid electric blue and red. The light reflecting off the crystalline walls looked like millions of red fireflies glowing on a sea of cobalt blue. The cavern resonated with a peculiar energy that was both soothing and vitalizing at the same time. A large round table stood in the center of the vast room. Around the table, on red satin chairs, were seated many beings, members of the Galactic Union from throughout the galaxy. The Council of Light had assembled to discuss a problem concerning Earth, a planet in one of the outer arms of the Milky Way galaxy. "I am very concerned," said their leader, Mostinia. "Earthman should be given the capacity for both physical and soul evolution, just as is given to other species within the lower dimensional worlds. I do not feel that Earth beings should be denied this gift. It is a gift from God, the creator of all. We do not know how Earth beings will respond to this gift of spirit, but we do know that they should not be denied. So basically, the story that was unfolded to me and explained to me, and which I wrote down, was the story of how the human being was created, genetically engineered really, by God, the Elohim, and by various star nations within this Milky Way galaxy who contributed an aspect of their genetic code. These are advanced extraterrestrial beings who, from Sirius, Pleiades, Andromeda, which is another galaxy actually, Lyra, and some of the other star nations like Arcturus. They contributed the best of their own genetic code to this new species that they called the human. Because Hu, like Hu, is actually a sound that means of God. So what was explained to me, and I didn't know the story until I wrote it, is that we as human beings were created with a 12-strand DNA genetic code, like a 12-strand DNA human species template. But we were brought to the earth at a time 100,000 years ago when the earth had descended or contracted into third dimensional vibration. This is when Tara, T-A-R-A, which was the name originally given to Earth many hundreds of thousands of years ago, became Earth, because there was something that happened called the rebellion of the fallen angels. And the energies and the consciousness on Tara at that time, over a very long period of time, diminished in frequency. And so this contraction occurred, and Earth descended from being fifth-dimensional Tara, beautiful, pristine, pure, and untrammeled, if you like, to becoming Earth, which has been and still is a training ground, really, for soul evolution and soul advancement, because it's not a particularly easy place to live on here on Earth. Because what happens on Earth when you come to Earth is that you get veiled. You know, what you knew from other lifetimes gets veiled from us. And we come into a new body, a new personality, a completely new life. And the only thing that guides us through this whole life is the still small voice of our heart. The only thing that guides us is our intuition, our inner guidance, to know right from wrong and what is right and what it is that we're meant to be doing in this particular life. It's what we feel inside, you see. So these beings called human were created deliberately because when Tara contracted over a long period of time and became third dimensional Earth, the existing indigenous beings who had been on Tara at that time regressed in genetic capability because they didn't have the energy that we have, and they didn't have something that we have within our human selves, and that is the pineal gland. And they couldn't be reached by forces of light, by forces of the divine. And so because they lacked the genetic material to be advanced and maintained energetically, they gradually regressed and became probably what we know of as beings that are not quite humanoid type beings. And this is what I believe archaeologists and people on Earth now understand about previous human civilization. But what I'm told by Spirit is there were once much more advanced beings on the Earth. But because it was such a long period of time since the fall of Tara to now, there was incredible regression of the existing life forms. And there is more than one. There were many cycles. So there was a evolutionary advancement, and then there would be a regression, an evolutionary advancement, and then a regression. But the problem that they were discussing on Antares, this is the Galactic Council 100,000 years ago, is that the beings on Earth at that time could not be reached to be advanced because they'd contracted too much. They'd sunk too low, basically. They couldn't be reached. And so this decision was made to create this new species called the human and seed the Earth with this advanced human race so that at the right time, at the end of 4 great cycles, or 4 great ages as it is, which is 4 great ages of 26,000 Earth years approximately, of Earth precession, we as humans can be actively advanced. And this really is what Ascension is all about.
And we're right in one of those.
We're right
now.
in one.
Okay.
We're at the beginning of this 5th great age. We're at the beginning of a new 26,000 year cycle now, since 2012. And And we're being activated now by forces of spirit, of divine, of God, really, creation, energy, which is coming in to Earth, and we feel it through the solar flares. The energy's coming to Earth. What I'm doing when I'm speaking these energy words, I'm just being used by Spirit as a catalyst, like a conduit to switch the way showers, all of you, the people that have come to lead the charge, basically. My role is to switch all of you on so that you can do what you have come to do better. That's why I'm here, really. And that's really why I'm here in Ireland, because we know the energy in Ireland. It's very sacred, it's very special. There's incredible energy here, an incredible history. I've yet to go to the hills of Tara, and it was the place, as of course, where the kings of Ireland were crowned. They were crowned there for a reason, an energy reason, which goes way, way back in time. So it's also interesting that it was called Tara. So there must have been some memory and knowledge with the ancient ones here, and the little people and the leprechauns, and there's all this ancient earth wisdom here and sacred knowledge. So,
Judy, I want to just take you to your own life.
Yes.
So how did this all start for you? What was the trigger point in your life that led you to this?
Well, I'm really normal. I wasn't psychic from the age of 4. I didn't have all these strange experiences. I've never really seen beings of light standing visibly in front of me, except once when I did Vipassana and I meditated for 10 days, and then I went to my energy healing class and I could very visibly see very tall beings of light around every massage table. But I'm really normal. My original training was physiotherapy, which helped me to understand the human body, because I work a lot with regeneration now, you see, so I needed to understand that. But then I spent about 15 to 20 years in marketing and public relations. Also helpful. But what happened was I got to the stage where I actually couldn't sit in front of the computer and write anymore. There was something inside me that says, I just can't do this. And I felt it was so mundane to be writing press releases. My heart wasn't in it anymore, basically. And I didn't really know what to do, but I just knew I couldn't keep doing that. Probably 10 years before that, I did travel quite a bit, and I picked up books about channeling. I did past life regression. I did all sorts of courses like the Forum and Money and You, and many of the courses that were taught in the 80s and 90s.
So you were kind of new age seeker?
Oh, very new age seeker.
Okay.
But I didn't quite know what I was seeking, And I didn't know. I just, like all of us, we just keep walking, we just follow the path, we just feel what we should do. We don't necessarily know what that is. So I didn't know what it was either. I just knew that everything was changing in my life, and I didn't feel like I wanted to be doing what I was doing anymore. And then absolutely out of the blue, I got a brochure in the mail. I was living in Auckland in New Zealand, and I got a brochure in the mail about a Learn to Channel workshop in Auckland, and I felt in my heart again, because following the heart is important, I felt that I just had to go. But it was a bit of a test because I was late. I couldn't find the place. I was very tempted to sit in a cafe and have a latte, and I actually did for 15 minutes. And then I said to myself, you always wimp out. Why? You want to do all these things, but you wimp out at the last minute.
Okay.
And I did have that pattern of like procrastinating and then somehow sabotaging it. So I said to myself, yes, I'm going. Well, I found the place in about 2 minutes. But that workshop, which was 2 days, changed my life. Because what happened there is when we started doing the exercises, holding the crystals and feeling into the energy of the crystal, because when you're channeling or when you're connecting with spiritual beings, they don't have names like us, but they have an energy signature. So their energy signature, the way they feel, is like their name, like our name. So I started feeling this energy with the crystal. In fact, my body shook so much I just about fell off the chair. So I knew something was happening, because the only benchmark I had was not what someone was telling me, but what I felt. And this is the only benchmark any of us actually have, is what we actually feel in our heart, is what is our truth. You see, so that's why what you said at the beginning was take away what you need, what feels right to you,
Sure.
is perfectly correct. Because it's not about preaching, and it's just about getting a message out, a new perspective. And then everybody has to feel what feels right.
And tell us, Judy, about working with Balthazar.
So I met this being there called Balthazar, and he looked to me like really tall with brown skin and a black beard and purple robe. In my inner sight, I saw him, but I shook very strongly. And over the year ahead, I worked with him, and he used to do readings for people.
So you would sit with people.
I would sit with people. I would sit with people, and Balthazar would come through.
Yeah.
And he was one of the magi, one of the 3 wise men. You see, he told me that. And he would say, "I am with you, my child." But my body would shake so violently that I knew he was with me, because I couldn't possibly create that.
And your voice went.
And my voice changed. So it wasn't my voice, it was another voice coming out of me. So that's how in the beginning I knew that what I was doing was true. And I trusted it, because corporate land, you don't necessarily trust those things. I was brought up in a very normal background, and I had never been the caftan and bees type, and I never am, and I still aren't. But I was not the typical New Age type person at all.
But when you started the channel, were people open? Because I believe New Zealand is quite open.
They were. New Zealand is very open, and in those early days, I started a weekly meet-up event, just like Paul's doing. And I used to get quite a lot of people come along, and I'd talk about the things that I was learning, really, and I'd just pass it on to them. So I started working after that first year, channeling Balthazar and channeling his energy. I started working with ascended masters and angelic beings and the Christ energy, Mary, Mother Mary. In the early days, she taught me a beautiful prayer, actually.
Wow.
Mary. And it goes like this. With the love of God, come into this space, into our minds and into our hearts. In the stillness, let the word of God speak, so that we might hear and come into the presence. May all those beings of light and love from the many-mansioned wars of God join together with us on our journey. So that was the prayer she taught me, and it's something that I say every day, actually.
Beautiful prayer.
And basically what I got from that prayer was the all-inclusive message that there was Mary, there was Jesus, there was the Buddha, there was so many of the ascended masters. There was the angelic kingdom, there was the nature spirits, there was the ones from other star systems. There's the Elohim, there's the multigalactic energies now. There's so many beings of light and love who are with us, who are guiding us forward on earth through this time of change. Could call it ascension, because ascension is really about opening, not about going up or going anywhere. It's really about opening into more of who we are as beings, as people, as humans. And it's all about opening into more of the truth of the soul, so that we can bring that into us.
You said we're at the beginning of 26,000 year cycle, so this is a pretty early days in this cycle.
Yes, it is.
So in terms of ascension, we're currently in 3D. I asked you today, do you feel like, so I've asked this question before, so you go from 3D to 5D, what happens to 4D? So 4D you described as a kind of a training ground, a transition.
Yes. Well, I feel that the earth itself is now vibrating in 5D. And there's, it's throwing off a lot of karmic trauma, just like us, just like we are. Some people are also vibrating in 5D. And you know this really when life becomes easy. You know this when everything just flows. When you are able to be with what is.
Can you step in and out of 5D? Or do you kind of consistently?
Yeah, you can. If you get grumpy or you get stressed, you can step in and out of 5D. But for the most part, you're in a pretty good space.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
And you're resonating with the earth frequency.
So just
4D, 4D,
sorry,
like you said.
Yeah.
4D is almost like transition, because it relates to the energy levels of our human energy field as well, because we have 7 levels of our human energy field. The third level of the field, the first level of the field, third, fifth and seventh are more fixed. So third dimension is fixed, fifth dimension is fixed, fourth is a fluid level of our energy field, also relates to the heart chakra, also being like the fourth chakra. It's like the entry point between above and below. And in the human energy field, the fourth level of the field is, it's almost like the bridge between the more physical aspects of ourselves and the more spiritual aspects of our field. Like the parts of our energy which go with the soul and the parts of our energy which die with the body, you see.
And do you get a sense of a time frame on this? Do you get a sense of, like, I mean, I heard you mention 2030, that was a kind of some kind of
2033. So
okay.
what I've been getting recently is that 2019 is a year of incredible preparation for people, which is why we're here, really, which is why I felt guided to come and go on this tour. 2020 is when I think majorly powerful ascension energies are going to start flowing to Earth, which may shake a lot of people up if they don't know and they aren't prepared. So what I'm being guided to do is work with people's energy fields so that they can assimilate these energies better, work to activate the soul memory so that we can step into more of the understanding of who we actually really are. And so the years, I'm told, between 2020 and 2033 are powerful years of change, both on the planet, on the outside, but also within people. And all of us who are way showers and here to guide are getting opened up first so that we can guide, basically.
Okay. Okay, so are people kind of feeling this, in the room? Like, you obviously gathered here for that reason, but it kind of feels right to me, And I'm just wondering, so I've asked this question before, but it's really important. How can people prepare for something like that? What's the best things you can do physically to get yourself ready for that?
Know yourself. Know yourself. Meditate. When I say meditation, there's many types of meditation. And I'm talking here not about guided meditation. I'm talking here about sitting in stillness. And it's called like anapanasati meditation, which is shutting your eyes, crossing your feet, crossing your hands, and just going into stillness, just observing your breath, just being, really. And what that does, it stills and calms the mind, and it creates an opening to connect to the soul, which means really the voice of the heart, the voice of the inner self, to feel stable and grounded and at peace. Because from that point of stillness and peace and oneness with ourselves, we can do anything.
And on the level of like connecting with nature and walking barefoot and what you eat, or all these kind of things are really important as well?
They are really important as well. I think the meditation, the knowing oneself is critical, because if you don't do that, all the other disciplines that you put in place are not going to do the trick. They're going to help.
Okay.
So walking bare feet on the grass, as I'm sure you all know, is very grounding, because we're becoming now fifth dimensional beings, so we need to align with fifth dimensional frequency. And within the earth, deep within the earth, in the inner worlds of Agartha, is a place called Amenti. Amenti is the place of the pulse rhythms, or the heartbeat of the earth. So when we stand with bare feet on the earth, not only are we connecting to the Schumann resonance, the resonance of the earth, we're also connecting to this place of creation energy within the earth, which tends to recreate us because we're pulling it up through the chakra points in our feet into our human energy systems.
On the nutrition side, there's something that you talked about as well, and that's chlorophyll. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. So that's obviously green leafy veg, and we've all got to eat all those things. So we get it. But what types do you recommend there? What do you recommend in that?
Okay, so chlorophyll is really important because it helps transmit light to the cells of the body. So with ascension, the first stage of ascension is actually working spirit, and the light is working with our physical body. Because if we can't pull the energy through the energy circuits of our body, and if the cells of our body cannot hold the light, which is the energy that's coming in, we can't change. We can change to a degree, but we can't change to the degree that we're meant to be changing and we really want to change. So chlorophyll, chemically, with its chemical composition, is very similar to hemoglobin in the blood. The only difference is that hemoglobin has at its centre iron, and chlorophyll has at its centre magnesium. but they're completely almost identical. So when plants they create chlorophyll from the sunlight through the process of photosynthesis. Our hemoglobin molecule within our blood is the transporter of nutrients and oxygen to all the cells of our body. So as the blood has been described as the river of life, chlorophyll ingested, taken to the cells of the body, and the light is taken to the cells of the body. Chlorophyll is like the river of new life. It creates the river of new life, which is the light, taking the light to the cells. So this is why you might have felt increasingly that you can't eat the dense, heavy foods that you might have eaten in the past. Are you feeling like that? Yeah. And me too. And that's what most people notice as they go through this ascension process, is that the body rejects it really, and you don't feel, well, you might have digestive issues, or you might not just want to eat those foods. And I'm speaking here of heavy wheat flour, sugar, maybe meat, those sorts of dense foods. And it is needed to eat more plant-based foods, because we're living now on the fifth dimensional earth, and we're changing more and more to fifth dimensional vibration. So we need to be eating foods that are grown in this new fifth dimensional earth, as organic and full of life force as possible, as pesticide-free as possible, as untampered with by a human hand as possible.
So the whole process is kind of a lightening up. It's a lightening up of our food, a lightening up of our presence, a lightening up of our energy. Yeah,
exactly.
So I want to just rewind slightly and talk a little bit. Well, I'm actually gonna go on to the galactic dudes. Okay, I want to have a chat about those guys. So I get the feeling we're part of a galactic family, but we're obviously not aware of it.
No.
We're aware of it on some levels, but we're not publicly aware of it. So I'm just wondering, is there a galactic group of planets watching us right now and watching us kind of go through this shift because they've already gone through it themselves and they want to kind of guide us in some way? Is there a galactic
To a degree.
group?
We are part, on Earth. Earth is one of the very small and seemingly insignificant planet, actually, on one of the outer arms of the Milky Way galaxy, which is, I think, billions of stars, really, and in the Milky Way. So I knew all about that when I wrote the book, and I understood about the Galactic Council representing the different evolved star nations within this galaxy. But what we've also got to understand is that if we were to look through a telescope on third dimensional Earth, we would see these places like Sirius, Lyra, through third dimensional eyes, but they're not vibrating in those dimensions. For example, Sirius is vibrating fifth or sixth dimension. Lyra is vibrating 12th dimension. So they're much faster. So with our human naked eye, we can't see those star systems in the way that they have life on them.
It's like they're on a different
They're on a
bandwidth,
totally different
radio station.
A totally different radio station. So we think we're alone here, but we're actually not. We're just in a different wave band, basically. You know?
And are we kind of, though, at the leading edge of creation as well? Because we're so...
We are.
This seeding was like, we're going to seed these guys such a dense level, without making us sound like we're all idiots, but like it's a low vibrational planet, and watch them kind of come to know who
evolve.
They are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So there's several reasons why the human was brought to the earth. The first, probably the most important, is that at its heart, Earth has this place called Amenti. But in the time of Tara was very advanced, and there was a lot of knowledge and information secreted away and hidden away within Amenti by those who are called the Watchers, the ancient ones within the earth. And they have guarded this knowledge until such time as this knowledge of Tara could be brought forward again. And the existing beings on Earth at that time, this is hundreds of thousands of years ago, I don't know how long, really, regressed, as I said, through many retrogressive and evolutive cycles. But they couldn't be reached. And so the human was created and brought to the earth 4 great ages ago to seed the earth. But you see, the cry went out throughout those star nations who contributed their genetic code. Okay, we need you guys. We need you now. It's time for you to go to earth, to take on the human DNA, so that at the right time on earth, at the end of 4 great ages, when the earth is ready to ascend, you will be there. You see? So we, all of us, we came. We put up our hand and we came. And we've had all these lifetimes on earth. We trapped here, we see, when we came. We couldn't go back until this time, this lifetime, on this planet now, where we are being activated and triggered to remember. And you see, we've also, I believe, that will come forth is that if we have been on Tara very long time ago, and then we went to the stars on the fall of Tara, and then we decided to come back to help redeem the earth, to help shift the vibration, we also have some wisdom within our DNA, within our soul DNA from that time. It's too early yet to know what that is, because I've only just started to realise that we do have this. But there is something that goes beyond the 4 great ages of 100,000 years ago, way before this.
And if you delve back into our history here, we obviously, some people would know about Lemuria and Atlantis. And so we were more advanced than we are now.
Well, yes, you see, because Lemuria, take Atlantis, for example. Atlantis was a Pleiadian colony which has been, probably was initiated around 100,000 years ago or so. Maybe slightly more.
Underwater, Judy, yeah? Is that correct?
Sorry?
Underwater?
It is now.
Yeah, it is now, but then it was on land.
Wasn't, and then it was quite a large landmass, stretching from way up, probably in the Atlantic, off the coast of, say, Canada, all the way down to the Bahamas, that area, I believe. But it was many islands. It was not just one big landmass. And over a long period of time, I would say 50 to 60,000 years, maybe more, it gradually, they got lost bits of the landmass and changed. And then the final cataclysm, I believe, happened about halfway through this last great age that's just concluded, around 13,000 years ago.
Is this the fall that you talk about?
No, this is not. No. This is like the sinking of Atlantis.
Okay.
Lemuria disappeared before Atlantis. And some, like Plato, for example, writes about the dreadful day and the dreadful night and the sinking beneath the waves. And he sent someone called Solon to talk to the priests in Egypt. This is not Egypt in the last 5,000 years. This is ancient priesthood in Egypt who held the ancient knowledge of Atlantis, because what I have been told is that when the final Atlantean cataclysm happened, there was there were beings that went to all the lands around the Atlantic, particularly, like, take the Basque countries, for example. They speak a completely different language, which is said to have Atlantean rootstock in their language, totally unlike the other Romantic languages of Europe. And there's the, I've just been in Canada.
Yeah.
So there's the First Nations of Canada. Many of these ancient cultures they tell the same story in a slightly different form, but it's still the same story, really.
And in Atlantis and Lemuria, was there some kind of abuse of power that caused this event to happen? In what sense? It was like...
Well, just let me touch on Lemuria for a little example. So there was Atlantis, which was created by the Pleiadians a long time ago, about 100,000 years ago, and Mu, Lemuria. And Mu actually is name which means mother. So Mu was like the motherland. But Mu, I believe that the earliest inhabitants of Mu were very much more in their light being. Mu was more pure, I think, in many ways than Atlantis. Atlantis was settled by different beings from many star systems, and a bit of a melting pot, really. Really, quickly became a bit of a melting pot. So this is 100,000 years ago, and then gradually it changed, of course, and the final cataclysm maybe 12, 13, 14,000 years ago. And at that time, yes, there was a lot of manipulation, misuse of power. Edgar Cayce did a lot of Atlantean readings with people in America when he was alive, and many of those readings were about manipulation of like creating robots to do the work of the planet, and misuse of power. And I feel that that was a cataclysm of wiping the earth clean with water. And we know about the Great Flood. The Hopi Indians talk about the 3 cleansings of the earth. They talk about the cleansing by fire, the cleansing by ice, and then the cleansing by water, which is Noah's Ark, about that same time. And so some Atlanteans went to Egypt, and they called the land of Chem in those days, Khem, and they made the land of Chem great because the one who took them there was Thoth, Thoth, who was the Atlantean priest king, and he took the Atlantean survivors to Egypt, and he subdued the barbarians, in the land of Chem, but he also took the tools, the knowledge of old Atlantis, of great Atlantis, which he secured under the pyramid, and many tunnels under the pyramid.
Wow.
And of course he wrote the Emerald Tablets, which was discovered in 1925 in Central America, because after the fall of the 18th dynasty in Egypt, the priesthood, the knowledge that was held by the priests through all of this long period of time, from the time that Thoth took the Atlanteans there, was carried away from Egypt, because that whole civilization crumbled. It crumbled with Akhenaten and Nefertiti being killed because they tried to introduce the one God principle into Egypt. And then their successors, Tutankhamun, and the final one, of that dynasty. And then it just completely disappeared, really. So the Egyptian priesthood, they took what was left of some of that knowledge to Central America. And in 1925, a man called Professor Doriel of the Great White Brotherhood found and translated emerald tablets that he called the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And they're writings of old Atlantis, and you can just Google them, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and you can read what was written.
Wow.
So it talks about Atlantis, talks about the destruction of Atlantis, and it talks about Thoth going beneath the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Gizeh, to this place that I've been speaking about called Amenti, to regenerate his physical body, so that he might go back to the surface again. Wow. And be restored and keep living, basically. And he's said to have lived for 16,000 years in Egypt, the land of Chem, before he finally went underground.
And in your own, living your own life day to day over these last 20, 30 years, you've had some quite out there experiences yourself. You've had a sighting, you said, in New York of a UFO, was it?
Yeah, that was when I wrote this book, you see.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of sightings, but I have had some pretty strange experiences. And I do feel a lot of energy, and I'll tell you one really strange experience that's funny, really. So this is going back probably about 2002 or so, 2003. And I was sitting with some friends in the Meze Bar, the Lebanese restaurant in Auckland. We were sitting there eating our falafel and our hummus, and 3 of us were channels. So we all started sort of jerking like that as we were eating. And we all got, at the same time, that we needed to go to Joshua Stone's Wesak celebration at Mount Shasta, which was in about 6 weeks. So we did. We arrived at Mount Shasta and we went to the Wesak celebration, and we rented a car, and we got told by Spirit that we had to drive to various places and do energy activations, which we didn't quite know we had to do, but we had a week, you see, up our sleeve for what we thought was a holiday. But it never, a lot of my holidays are never holidays. So we ended up, I was sitting next to Don, who was driving, and he's the channel, so he's going like that. And what happened to me is every time we came to an intersection, my hand would vibrate like this, and then it would speed up and it would go like a ramrod, and I would either be going left or right. So we travelled for 3,000 miles through California, Nevada, and Arizona, guided by the hand, and Don going like this. And every night we would be guided where to stay for the night, you see, because we didn't have any plan or any agenda. So one night, it was actually Wesak, because the Wesak celebration was not on the day of Wesak, you see. It was for Wesak, but it wasn't actually Wesak. And on that Wesak day, which you might not know, but Wesak is the day that Buddha and the spiritual hierarchy come to Earth to bless the Earth. And there was a celebration, a special process that is said to occur in the high Himalayas. So we were there for Wesak, and that particular year on Wesak there was also an eclipse of the moon, the sun eclipsing the moon. So that was pretty interesting too. So we arrived in this little town in the middle of northern Nevada, which was pretty remote, and there was nothing much there except one little main street. And we checked into the local hotel, and everybody was starving because it was about 8:30 at night. So I volunteered to go across the road, walk along the road and see if there's any cafes where we could eat, you see. So I did, and I walked down the road, and there was a little, just shingle, like stones, and ducks running around. And I walked down this little shingle driveway, and at the end of the driveway, and I kid you not, was a French restaurant. And this French restaurant was covered in about 2,000 fairy lights, so it was sparkling with all these beautiful fairy lights. Mm-hmm. And beside the restaurant was a cherry tree in full blossom with the moon starting to eclipse behind it. It's surreal.
Wow.
So I couldn't believe my eyes. I went into the restaurant. There was not a soul in the restaurant, but there was this beautiful music playing. And there were antiques, like polished antique furniture, and big vases of flowers, which you don't get in Nevada normally, in that remote area anyway. So, and there was a man came out to meet me, and he said his name was Julien from Paris. You don't get that in Nevada either. So I was pretty excited, really.
Looks like you're onto a winner there.
I was totally onto a winner. So I raced back to the others and said, quick, you've got to come. You've got to come and see the moon. And I found this restaurant. So we all ran back down through the ducks and the little path, and we had the most incredible meal at this restaurant with not another diner there, just us, with these tall stemmed crystal glasses full of this absolute incredible rosé wine that tasted like nectar of the gods, actually, and an incredible meal. And yeah, so that's what happened really on the day of Wesak. But some such strange experiences I've had on my travels. And
you know, I wanted to ask you as well about Alvin. Remember this character who came into your experience? So he was a man who was suffering with kind of ascension. I suppose he was suffering in his body, yeah? He was feeling really kind of mad rushes of energy, and he came to you.
So this goes actually back to 1998. And in 1998, I'd really only been channeling for a year, and I was training as an energy healer, working in the human energy field. So I didn't know a lot, but I'd been asked to speak at an event about energy healing, you know, about the chakras and the level of the energy fields and things like that. And Alvin happened to be there. So that night he called me on the phone and he said, I've got to come to see you. I've got all this energy going through my body, and I feel sick, and it's like these waves of energy, and I don't know what's going on. So can I come and see you? And it was Sunday night and about 8 o'clock, but I said he was round the corner. So I said, just come. So I got him on the massage table, and I used to use a pendulum, and I used to hold the pendulum over the chakras. So I checked his chakras, and they all looked pretty fine to me. So I held his feet, and he was sort of writhing and moaning and moving around on the table. I didn't quite know what was wrong with him. And what happened was some energy came out through his body, down through my body, and out through my feet. And Alvin jerked very much, a bit like there was a cardiac, electrodes put on his chest. And then he just subsided with his eyes shut on the top of the massage table. And I just waited for a couple of minutes. And then I said, are you okay? And he said, I can't open my eyes. He said, I'm out in the universe. I'm on a spaceship. I can't open my eyes, but I'm looking back at the earth, and I can see the earth, and I can see everything around me, and there's these really unusual looking beings around me, and I got pretty excited. So I rushed off and I got a pad and pen, and for the next 2 hours I wrote down what he described that he could see, which he could see really tall beings, and I think they were the Arcturians, like very tall beings with like turned up eyes and like almost flowing, like colour-coded garments. And he said he could see really short ones with round eyes, about 3 feet high.
Like the greys, or yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but really, they were all on that starship, you see.
Mm.
Because we're all one, really, and so they are too, with us.
Yeah.
And he said, Alvin was an inventor with solar energy. So he said, they brought me here to give me an activation so that at the right time I can help the earth. I can bring through some information to help the earth. And I saw Alvin reasonably recently, and I don't know whether he's got the information, but maybe it's not the right time yet.
Yeah, that was quite an experience though.
It was.
But I wanted to ask you as well about, so you've been channeling and connecting with the Arcturians, the Christ energy, Saint Germain, all these different energies all your life.
Yes, yes, since I started doing this.
Yeah, but now you feel you're kind of moving to connect with what you call the beyond.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
Well, you see, what happened, I'll go back to Alvin for a moment, because what happened was I said to Alvin, do they have anything to say to me? And Alvin said, yes. They say that your role is to recode the DNA. And that's in 1998, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant. And the only thing I knew about the DNA was what I learnt in biology at school. But now, in the last however many years it is, 21 years now, I have come to understand that all my work up until now has been about getting people ready, and it's also been about training me to speak these languages of creation which are about activating DNA, human DNA, so that the true innate potential within us all as human beings can be activated to be switched on. So I feel it's just beginning now, actually. And so...
And just by the vibration of these words causes the body to... Is that what you're saying? Is that what happens? Yeah.
Well, you see, I've just been in Bosnia, and I took a group of people on a tour to the Bosnian pyramids. And I did a series of 3 talks. And on the 3rd one, I started to feel an entirely new spectrum of energy coming through my body that Spirit described as ultralight. And ultralight is a different spectrum of energy than when we know of on Earth. But I researched it on Google. I typed in ultralight, and I saw that scientists have been speaking about ultralight since 2007. And one scientist described ultralight as being a 5th energy species, which is pretty interesting because the electromagnetic spectrum, which is infrared, ultrasound, microwave, all those particular energies, electromagnetic energies, are different to this energy. So I've only just started, this is only a week that I've been working with this energy. And I think that's why Spirit have set up this series of events in Europe now, beginning in Ireland, to begin to transmit these energies. Because when I first started speaking these languages, and it was 2002, and I didn't know I ever could, it was just something that happened.
How did that happen? That just start coming out of your mouth? Just
well, what happened was that I went to it was like a spiritual gathering, and it was called Convergence, and it was near Christchurch in New Zealand in the South Island, and it was over New Year 2002. And what you did, you went and you volunteered your services, and I was an energy healer, so I volunteered my services in the healing tent, you see. And I was with the same man called Don, who I went to Mount Shasta with, the channel. And we both got, at the same time again, that I needed to bring through some energy for the people there on New Year's Day, 2003. So I happened to know the organiser of the event, which was helpful. And I said, this is what we were thinking we needed to do. And he said, yes, go ahead, go for it. Yeah. So at 7 o'clock on New Year's Day, 2003, we stood in the marquee in front of all the people, and I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think something is, and I'm just going to try and see. So, and I'd been told to meditate for long periods of time in the 3 days prior to that, you see. So my energy was pretty up there. But I just shut my eyes, and to my absolute shock and amazement, out of my mouth came this string of language, like really fast language. And I used to channel with my eyes shut in those days because I was too scared to open them. You know, so I had my eyes tightly shut, and I sort of opened one little eye, and some of the people in the audience were laughing, but not really at me. They were just uncontrollably laughing. And some of the people were crying, and some of the people were like sitting there completely unable to move. So I came to understand that this was my introduction to speaking the languages of light for sure, because from that day I just did it automatically. See, because light language is not something that you learn, it's something you're activated to speak when the time is right. And I didn't know the time was right then, but it obviously was. And
it's amazing.
I just started to speak it.
You translate it in the moment as well. I've seen you translate it in the moment.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But you see, there's different types of language. So there's language which is designed to clear karmic distortion in the body, blocks. And there's language which is realigning the body's energy fields. And there's language which are multigalactic Star Nation languages, which I seem to know what it means. But I've never been taught.
And do they all speak different languages, or do they all they have one universal language that they all understand each other?
They speak a universal language, but they also have their different
Flavors,
languages, just like
but they all understand each other.
Yes.
Okay, and
they speak what they explained to me when I wrote the book is that they speak the universal language of light throughout the galaxy and beyond. You could say it's a bit like a universal language of the stars, but maybe they have their own languages as well, possibly. I don't know.
I think before we break, it would be nice to hear. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, would you like me to? I have to stand up there.
Yeah, just a quick as well about the diamond, but we'll come back to that in the second half. I'll leave you go with that now.
So there's many beings around us today, and I don't know who of you have felt a lot of energy coming through your body today. Yeah. Apart from the fact there's a lot of solar flares, like coronal mass ejection cycles, we're in a major one, there's also a lot of energy around us because they know what's happening, and they know it's the start of a huge wave of energy coming through to the planet for all of us. And so they want me to speak some words of welcome here. I'll just drink. Okay. And this is coming from, they say it's coming from beyond the beyond. It's coming from a council, but it's not really a council of beings. It's a combination of energy, because they're not in bodies like we are. They're just like an energy composition. But this is coming from this place. Mukodisi jana sana balakoya. Akalokadisi kazabidokola sukia. Alakale sati 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 sati. Okolabidik sadabelokoli sadabedigabidik sadabedi sadabedi. Alala galabalakoya salamalakoti sadabelokoya. Anamalakologishu namalakalabakoya. Alala galabadika sadabedigalabadika solabedigadabediki. Alagalala bedicadabidi salabedicolabidishu namalakolamanagalabacologri. Alagalabadicolabati sadabelokoya. Isiaka. And if you were to translate, it would be like, we're speaking to your heart. We're speaking to your soul. Know that you are so much more than you consider and know yourself to be. Understand that you are one with us and we are one with you. Through all time. So it's like what Spirit are really wanting all of us to know now is that we are being activated to go beyond our limitations, to go beyond our concept of self in ways that at the moment we cannot really predict and foresee. But we are safe, we are protected, and all we really need to do is let go and trust the divine flow and to know that all is well and that we are all being used. When I say used, I don't mean used, taken over against our will. I mean that we as human physical vessels living on earth are all being utilised in the perfect way as part of God's divine plan. You know, these star beings are one with God as we are. When I talk about God, I happen to speak of God, but you could just as equally say creation energies, universal creation energies of oneness, peace, love. It's all the same thing. Thank you.
You are loved, you are blessed, and so it is.